For over 4 decades, Muammar Gaddafi was the face of Libya. He came to power in 1969, a young army officer who overthrew a king and promised a new future. His rule was complex and, honestly, often brutal. On one hand, he used Libya's vast oil wealth to provide free education and healthcare, significantly improving the quality of life for many citizens. He established a unique political system he called the Jamahiriya, or State of the Masses. Under his leadership, Libya became a unified and, in many ways, stable country, which was a stark contrast to the chaos that would follow his demise. His control was absolute, and he projected an image of strength and eccentricity on the world stage. However, this stability came at a high price for freedom and human rights. Gaddafi's regime was a dictatorship that did not tolerate any form of opposition. Secret police monitored the population, and those who dared to speak out against him or his government often faced imprisonment, torture, or even death. He was also known for sponsoring international terrorism and pursuing weapons of mass destruction, making him an outcast in the international community for many years. By the time the Arab Spring protests swept across the Middle East and North Africa in 2011, a generation of Libyans had grown up knowing no other leader, and many were desperate for change. When these protests reached Libya, Gaddafi's response was swift and violent. He refused to step down and instead promised to crush the uprising, famously calling the protesters rats that needed to be cleansed from the country house by house. This brutal crackdown led to international condemnation. The official reason given by NATO countries, led by France, the United Kingdom, and the United States for intervening, was purely humanitarian. They claimed their goal was to protect civilians from a massacre at the hands of their own leader and to help Libyans achieve a democratic future, free from the grip of a tyrant. This official narrative of a noble mission to save lives was broadcast around the world and became the public justification for a 7-month-long bombing campaign. The intervention was framed as an urgent necessity, a moral obligation to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe and support the Libyan people's struggle for freedom. It was presented as a clear-cut case of good versus evil, with the international community stepping in to stop a dictator from slaughtering his own people. Yet, for many observers, this simple explanation felt incomplete, failing to account for the complex political and economic interests that were also at play behind the scenes. Beyond the official story of humanitarian concern, darker and more self-serving motives were at work, particularly involving France and its then president, Nicolas Sarkozy. A major scandal, which has since led to a trial beginning in 2025, alleges that Sarkozy accepted millions of euros from Gaddafi to illegally finance his 2007 presidential campaign. This secret deal was supposed to result in closer ties between France and Libya, clearing the name of one of Gaddafi's relatives in a terrorism case and providing other diplomatic favors. The 2011 intervention, therefore, presented a convenient opportunity to eliminate the one man who could expose this corrupt arrangement and bring down a European leader. This alleged cover-up was not the only hidden agenda. As part of the corrupt dealings between the two countries, a French technology firm had sold Gaddafi's regime a sophisticated surveillance system. This technology, known as Eagle, was used by Gaddafi's secret police to spy on, track down, and ultimately arrest and torture political dissidents. The French government was aware of this sale and the system's intended use. The intervention allowed France to position itself as a champion of the very people its technology had helped oppress, creating a smokescreen to hide its complicity in the regime's human rights abuses while pursuing its own strategic goals in a post-Gaddafi Libya. The intervention was also driven by broader geopolitical and economic ambitions. Western powers, especially France, saw an opportunity to secure their interests in the region. These interests included Media Group, oil refinery in Libya, oil pump jacks in desert, French energy executives in meeting, aerial view of Libyan oil infrastructure at distribute_equally, access to Libya's vast oil reserves, lucrative arms sales to a new government, and establishing a strategic foothold in North Africa for counter-terrorism operations. While the public focus was on protecting civilians, the military action was also a calculated move to remove a difficult and unpredictable leader and replace him with a government that would be more favorable to Western economic and political influence, effectively turning Libya into a client state. Ultimately, the official justification of promoting democracy and protecting human rights served as an ideological pretext for a campaign driven by corruption, political survival, and strategic gain. Gaddafi had already abandoned his nuclear weapons program years earlier and had ceased his active support for international terrorism, re-engaging with the West. The sudden urgency to remove him seemed suspicious to many. The intervention was less about saving Libya and more about silencing a dangerous witness, hiding past misdeeds, and reshaping the political landscape of North Africa to better serve the interests of the foreign powers involved, particularly France. The removal and death of Muammar Gaddafi did not lead to the stable, democratic Libya that NATO leaders had promised. Instead, it created a power vacuum that plunged the nation into a state of complete collapse. Without a strong central figure to hold the country's diverse regions and tribes together, Libya fractured. Rival militias that had once fought together against Gaddafi quickly turned their guns on each other, carving the country into personal fiefdoms. Soon, two main rival governments emerged, one in the west, based in Tripoli and recognized by the United Nations, and another in the east, led by the powerful General Khalifa Haftar. This political division ignited a brutal and prolonged civil war that has defined the post-Gaddafi era. The conflict turned Libya into a battleground for foreign powers, who poured weapons, money and mercenaries into the country to back their preferred sides. France, for example, publicly supported the UN-led peace process while covertly providing military and diplomatic aid to General Haftar in the east. This foreign interference only fueled the fighting, making any chance of reconciliation or national unity nearly impossible. The country that was once unified under Gaddafi's iron fist was now a patchwork of warring territories, with no single authority in control. The consequences for ordinary Libyans have been catastrophic. The once strong economy, almost entirely dependent on oil, fell into turmoil as rival factions fought for control of oil fields and refineries. Basic public services like electricity and water became unreliable. The ongoing violence and instability triggered a severe humanitarian crisis, with hundreds of thousands of people needing aid to survive. The Derna Dam collapse in September 2023, which killed thousands, was a direct result of years of neglect and corruption by the rival authorities who failed to maintain critical infrastructure, a tragedy that would have been unthinkable under the old regime's centralized control. Human rights abuses became widespread, often far worse than what was seen under Gaddafi. Both sides of the civil war have been accused of torture, extrajudicial killings, and arbitrary detention. Migrants passing through Libya have been subjected to horrific conditions, including forced labor, extortion, and sexual assault at the hands of militias. The international community, especially the United States, largely failed to plan for the day after Gaddafi's fall. President Barack Obama would later call this lack of a post-conflict plan his worst mistake, a recognition that the intervention had unleashed a wave of chaos that neither the West nor the Libyans were prepared to handle. In the face of the unending chaos, many people, both inside and outside Libya, now argue that the country would have been better off if Gaddafi had not been killed. This argument is not a defense of his brutal dictatorship, but a pragmatic assessment of the outcome. Under Gaddafi, Libya was oppressive, but it was also unified and stable. Citizens had a lower quality of life in terms of freedom, but a higher quality of life in terms of personal safety, economic security, and access to functioning state services. His death replaced a predictable tyranny with an unpredictable and violent anarchy that has made daily life far more dangerous and difficult for the average person. Furthermore, the way Gaddafi was killed, captured, and executed by rebels in the street represented a missed opportunity for true justice and national reconciliation. Had he been captured alive, he could have faced a formal trial, either in a Libyan court or at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. A trial would have provided a public and official accounting of the crimes committed during his 42-year rule. This process could have served as a unifying nation-building event, allowing Libyans to collectively confront their past and establish a new society based on the rule of law rather than the rule of the gun. Instead of a trial that could have brought closure, his death left a void filled by vengeance and foreign exploitation. With Gaddafi gone, Libya became a playground for external powers who armed different factions to advance their own agendas, ensuring the conflict would continue for years. A living Gaddafi, even one imprisoned, would have prevented the complete disintegration of the state and deterred the kind of blatant foreign interference that has torn the country apart. His presence, however controversial, acted as a barrier against the country becoming a failed state exploited by others for its resources and strategic location. Ultimately, understanding the real reasons behind Gaddafi's death is crucial. The intervention was not the simple humanitarian mission it was claimed to be. It was a strategic move that failed spectacularly. It did not bring democracy or peace. It shattered a country, unleashed a humanitarian disaster, and created a haven for extremism and foreign meddling. The story of Libya serves as a powerful lesson about the unintended consequences of foreign intervention, especially when those interventions are built on hidden motives and a profound lack of planning for the future. The desire for stability and the chance for real justice through a trial are two compelling reasons why some believe Gaddafi's survival would have offered Libya a better path forward.